everybody. Welcome to the 10x Growth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Saradha Sriram, Business Technology Strategist. We have with us today Sujatha Jayagopal. Welcome to our podcast, Sujatha.
Hi, Sujata. Great to see you after such a long time.
Absolutely. The book we're going to talk about today is called Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson. Before we dive in, what was your first reaction to seeing a book titled Surrounded by Idiots?
Yeah, so Thomas did choose on a catchy title. Yeah, as soon as I saw the title, I thought, right, let's see. It's quite intriguing, and let's read it. We are often or sometimes surrounded by idiots. Sometimes we are one of them. So it was pretty intriguing to see what the book is all about. Yeah.
Absolutely, it is a little clickbaity, but I'm also very interested in knowing about what you think, of the book. Even before we get started there on the book, I would like to hear about your journey and how this book has influenced your work.
Yeah, so Shada, we know each other from kindergarten, and it's been quite some time. We're both in our 40s now. But yeah, so I did all my schooling and my education in India, and then I always wanted to get in sales. I come from a business family. My father, I've been on lots of corporate sales meetings with my dad, even during my childhood. Sometimes he encourages to take me into those meetings to observe and learn. And I just love the way he did business deals, right? So, and I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be part of that action. And I used to see his eyes glitter when he's closed a deal, and that joy and satisfaction was something I wanted to experience, and that's how I got into sales. A little bit about me. I've always been in sales. I've got more than 20 years of experience selling large, complex IT solutions, consultancy services, and back office process, digital operations, outsourcing. So that's my background, and that's my job during the day, and by night I'm a stand-up comedian as well. And I think the toughest job was the latter, because I think it's very difficult to make a room of 200 strangers laugh to something that you thought was funny. But I use my comedy to not just make people laugh, but also to bring awareness about taboo topics, especially within the Indian culture. And that's something that I've been doing for quite some time now, probably 4 or 5 years in
Excellent.
London. Yeah.
I know we've known each other for over 4 decades, but a lot of what I remember is you have a fantastic background in the arts, and you're somebody who was not scared of the stage. You always know your audience. Given that you're into sales, you have a background in stand up comedy over the last few years and a longer background in the arts. What I would really like to understand is you work with very diverse teams, um, especially having read this book. Can you walk us through like a light bulb moment where understanding someone's personality type completely changed how you handle the workplace situation?
Yeah, so I think we meet all kinds of personalities, not just at work, in our personal lives as well. Sometimes you have a light bulb moment because um, you identify a particular trait in somebody that you never thought was there, or you sometimes have a light bulb moment when you realize you have a particular trait that you never realized you did, right? So that's basically what it is. And to be honest, if I had to compare my experience and background in art and to the job that I do, it's not that much different. I mean, by the way, I did have stage fright. I just knew how to mask it well. So
Wow,
I
that
still
is
do. I still do. But it's not a fear. It's more I think it's a mix of anxiety, and it's just that first laugh that you want to get, and then it's smooth sailing. It's just that adrenaline that pumps you up just before you get on stage. So it's a mix of all of that, right? And it's the same before I go for a sales meeting, that you're like your adrenaline is going up, and you're anxious, and you don't know what the meeting, how much ever you've prepared, you never know how the meeting's going to turn up. So and you need to be spontaneous, right? You need to be spontaneous when you are in a meeting, or when you are performing live. So that's the main thing. You're performing live, be it in a sales situation or in art. And the light bulb moment is that actually, if you're true to yourself, and if you're being true to what you are actually presenting, whether it is the form of art or whether it is a service that you're selling, as long as you're true and honest to yourself, I don't think it really, even if it's not a success, or even if it's not gone the way you wanted it to go, at least you've done your best and you've been true to yourself. So that's basically what I would say is the light bulb moment for me. Yeah, and yes, there are so many books that has been written on personalities, on understanding behavioral changes in people, studying people's behavior. And Thomas is basically very beautifully written about the four buckets, right? And he's categorized them into red, yellow, blue, and green. And yeah, it's absolutely important to understand first what sort of personality you fit into, what sort of personality the team members that you have fit into, um, understanding what the client's personality is going to be, or it's if it's art, what your audience is going to be, and what kind of demographics, what kind of mindset are they going to be in, and then based on which you decide not just who you take for the meeting, but the venue, the environment that you set up, all of that, right? So it's absolutely important to take into consideration not just the personality of the person, but also the environment that they are in, the environment you're setting up for that particular experience to happen, or the moment to happen. That's why you find like all these hi-fi restaurants talking about ambience, right? So it's very important you also set the ambience which is right. So it's a multiple, it's so many different things, I would say.
That is
I
so
don't know if
true.
I answered your question, but
Pretty close to what I was asking, but I'm also curious, how has this awareness shaped your management style? Are there any funny stories when personality differences led to memorable misunderstandings?
yeah, lots of memorable misunderstandings. I don't know if I have to get into all of them or some of them, but yeah. So there are times where you get into a meeting. It's not just the personality, right? It's your accent, it's your language, it's your way of expressing certain words. I was recently in a meeting where, I mean, in an event where it was for special needs children. It's such a sensitive topic. You cannot say things that, even in jest, and especially in the world that we live in, where we need to be absolutely sensitive of PC, political correctness, you need to be very careful of the choice of words. So when I wrote my material, because I was the host for that event, I had to write and refine and write and refine, because I don't want to offend anybody, right? But at the same time, make it funny, and bring out some anecdotes that would make it funny, right? So that's something that is important. But yeah, if you want, if you want a funny story, it's not about. Okay, so we were in a meeting in Scotland, in one of my previous companies, so I can narrate this because it's not in the company I'm working for now. But we were in this meeting. It was in the north of Scotland. Um, very very heartwarming clients. Okay, so their personality itself is very friendly, very very welcoming. They're not like very cold towards you. So they're very amazing people. They worked in public sector, and we're presenting to them. And I had people come from multiple different geographies, from India, from the UK, from London, and so on and so forth. Now, the Scottish accent can be super strong, and it's not easy to understand, especially in the Highlands, right? So we were presenting, and it was about IT security. And this guy, my colleague, he came up. He's from India, from the north of India, from a state called Bihar, and he was presenting the security solution. Now, the thing about the British, I don't know if you know, they're very polite. They will not open up. They don't want to offend anyone. So I'm sitting there. I'm letting my boy speak about the security solution, and he's talking. And I look at my client's body language, and they are like that, trying to understand what he's trying to say. And but they're feeling uncomfortable to even ask. And you immediately know that it's a very tense, it's becoming a tense situation, and you need to break that ice. So I said, guys, I had to interrupt my colleague and say, just a second. And I kind of asked them, is it do you want him to go slow? Did you get any of that? And they were like, no. And I said, that's how important we take security, because we even encrypt what we speak. And we had to break the ice that way, right? So this is basically just, and then they were relaxed and they said, oh yeah, I know you guys can't understand our accent as well, but we'll try and learn from each other, and we'll be slow. And that's it. I mean, it's not that they want to offend you, or they don't want to, and we want the deal, right? So it's just because you brought humor in, you brought to break the ice, you kind of made a joke about something that they didn't want to, they didn't know how to handle or tackle, and you normalize that situation. So that's basically something I can say, that it's about personality, it's about how you deal with things.
That's a brilliant anecdote. I really enjoyed listening to it. Here is something our listeners often debate. Do you think our personality types are set in stone, or have you observed them shifting based on circumstances?
Yeah, good question, right? See, and this is just my pure opinion, that I think our basic foundation personality, I don't think that changes. It builds and it develops as you grow and as you build your experiences, and as you meet people from different cultures. Your personality, your basic personality develops and blossoms, right? But the traits still seem, stay the same. I don't think that changes. But what you can actually build on top of that is the skill to learn, listen, and understand what your environment, the people that you are interacting with, and observe what their the pure, honest intentions are, and then try and handle that in the way you want to. And that's basically how I see it. I don't think you can change your foundation, basic traits and personalities. If you are analytical, you are analytical. If you are, somebody who is dominant, then you are dominant. Okay, so I don't think you can change that basic trait. But and if you're such a enthusiastic, a bunch of people, which I think I am, then you can't change that trait. And you basically choose the path that you want to, and you try and understand the other personality, and you kind of dial down or dial up your personality based on what the situation is. So that's basically the way I see it. I don't think you can change your basic personality, and I don't think you should change your basic personality. You can build and develop on it, and you can dial down or dial up based on the situation, and that's something you build based on experience. Yeah.
So that's very contextual too, right? It's again based on circumstances.
Yeah.
If our listeners could implement just one insight from your experience, I'm sure you work with certain frameworks. What would you want them to try?
Look, I did say this earlier as well. See, there are multiple frameworks. There is, especially in a corporate world, if you're talking from a corporate world perspective, there are so many frameworks out there. There are so many leadership, trait, behavioral studies and analytical studies that you can do on this. Thomas talks about the red, blue, green, yellow. Some people being dominant, some people being, analytical and precise. Some people being very stable and supportive kind of personality. Some people, and I don't think anybody's kind of fits into just that one box. They kind of are sometimes a blend of a red and a yellow, or a blue and a green, or either way. It basically is something that you learn, and as a leader, as you grow into a leadership position, what you need to know is, for a leader, what are the skills that you need to develop? What are the behavioral skills that you need to develop? Understanding your personality, and then adding on top of that the behavioral skills that you need to build, right? And then you have your communication skills that you need to build on top of that. And then you have, I think, the listening skills. I think that's very important, which is part of your communication. It's not just about talking, it's also about listening, right? Which is something you need to build. Then it's about management, team management, right? So, and all of this actually becomes an input into how you actually can manage a team, depending on what that team is all about. If it's a completely technical team, developers, bunch of developers, that's a totally different kind of leadership skill that you need to manage them. If it's a bunch of sales, enthusiastic salespeople like we are, you absolutely need to have a completely different thought process and a thought leadership that you need around those kind of traits, right? Those kind of teams. So it depends on what kind of work or job you are expected to do, what your personal goals are, and what the corporate goals that you are trying to achieve are, and then based on which you need to choose the right framework that fits into your role, I think.
I am now going to ask you a politically sensitive question. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be politically correct. What has your experience been being a woman in sales? It's not a very common thing. And more importantly, you talked about doing stand-up comedy on the side. Women are not looked upon nicely when you try to use humor in work situations as much as men are. I have noticed that in certain situations. So, what is your thought process around using, your gender in uh, industry you're in, and more importantly, the side gigs that you do?
Yeah, so this fight, I don't know when it's going to end, us fighting for equal rights. But and we can talk about this until the cows come home, I think. For example, there was one instance where in quite a big organization, there was, how these corporate offices are. You have glass meeting rooms on one side, and then open desks on the other side. And it just happened that we were five women leaders in a meeting, and even it didn't click for us that there were five women in this meeting, and just five women. And the men in the office just couldn't understand how five women can actually have a meeting. And they had to kind of stop, pause, look, and they're like, what are they like, what can they be possibly discussing, right? So that's the kind of world, unfortunately, we're still living in, right? So that's something that will take some time to, and I think we have done as women quite well to break a lot of glass ceilings, right? And we're up there, but there is still subconscious or unconscious bias that you feel. You have felt it, I have felt it
Yes.
in our workplace, right? And it has been, to be honest, and I'm quite an honest person, it has been quite a struggle to even be heard sometimes in a sales role. It has been in the past, but I think as you bring in experience, as you bring in logic, as you bring in knowledge about the subject and onto the table, um, and you normalize who you are based on your skills. I've been in a interview once for a job where they said, "Oh, we'd like to hire you, uh, especially because you tick all the boxes for diversity. Your minority, you're a woman, and you're gay. So you tick all the boxes for diversity, and we need you." I said,
Ouch.
I am actually a good salesperson too, right? And that's the most important thing why you should be hiring me, not because you have to tick all the boxes in the diversity box, right? So I know that's important as well, but that shouldn't be the reason why you as a woman with skills for that job is hired. You see what I mean? So we need to break that taboo, right? We need to break that. It's high time we do. And I think as women, we collectively need to support women to in order to break that. And that's quite important. And in a corporate world, that's absolutely important for us. But at the same time, if you think about uh, in a sales job, in even in arts, even in sports, we're just bringing up um, visibility, first of all, that women can do most of these things, and now it's beyond gender, right? We're now talking about gender fluid people. We're talking about, okay, now this is quite a complex topic. How do we handle in sports, and how do we, mainly in sports, how do you handle all of that? But we a person is a person, right? You accept them for who they are, for the skills they bring to the table, and for the different dimensions in the skill that they can bring, or something innovative, something value that brings value to the company, for to the art that they do, or whatever, right? So that's more important than, oh, what gender is she, or what gender is he, or who are they. It really needs to break that and get to a stage where we accept everybody for who they are, and the skills they bring to the table, and the value they bring to the table. That would be what I would say
Thank
to that.
Thank you. After all your experience with these concepts, what's the most liberating realization about human behavior that you wish you had known years ago?
Quite a deep question, Sharda. So yeah, so when it comes to human behavior, one thing that um, I have learned, I have learned through experience, is empathizing and listening to people, and understanding where they're coming from with regards to a particular issue or topic or whatever, right? We don't give time, I think, to take a step back, breathe, and embrace what the other person's saying. We don't do that. Be it big politicians, they're trying to push their agenda, be it corporates, they're trying to push their services solution. Everybody's competing in this world, such a busy world. We don't have time to listen to people. We don't listen or take in and try and give the time to understand where they're coming from, what are they trying to say as their challenges are, their pain points are, be it in a corporate world, be it in a social scenario. Trying to understand that in the beginning, and then trying to find a solution, or a service, or a help that you can provide in that particular situation, is what you need to do. It needs to be mutually valuable to both parties, or all parties that are involved in that particular situation. And I'm not talking just in a corporate world, right? It could be in any kind of, and that's a growth strategy that you need to bring in, is to be able to empathize, listen, and be there for each other, and not try to push your agenda down somebody's throat. And that's a behavioral change that we need to see within all environments, all corporate environments, right? And also in art, and be the social environment as well. I don't know if it answered your question, but yeah.
Yes, it does. And I think all this comes with a lot of experience and maturity. And most importantly, to remember, and understand different personalities isn't just about labeling people as, based on their gender or their traits. And I think it's more about adapting our communication style to
Yeah,
connect better with others, whether they are red, yellow, green, or blue.
yeah.
I'm sure you enjoyed exploring the disc model with us today. I want to express my gratitude to our listeners and especially to you, Sujata. Your curiosity and engagement drive this podcast. I'm excited to continue this journey of exploration and discovery with every one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharda. Thank you. And good luck with your podcast.
Thank you.